Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Quite a day regarding negotiations between the Fury camp and the Alexander Usyk camp. Look, it started off with Fury, was he on Instagram or something, saying, right, I'll offer you 70-30 because that's all you're worth. And for every day that you delay accepting this offer, I'm taking 1% off it. I mean, now, why would he make this, this statement? Well, he would make it because, one possibility, he doesn't want the fight. I think this is a reasonable assumption to make. He doesn't actually want the fight. And he's pricing himself out. It's the old trick, you know, very easily done. Doesn't take the proverbial rocket scientist to understand this, although most of the fanboys, of course, will... If Fury offered Usyk 1%, they'd still find a reason to justify Fury turning that down. If Usyk accepted it. That's one reason. Don't want the fight. Another reason is mind games. I control the narrative. I'm getting inside your head. I'm frustrating you. Kind of similar to what went on with Dillon White with the 20% that White eventually accepted, but clearly wasn't happy. And I think there's a fair chance that White was affected by that. His motivation was affected. It was on his mind. He didn't perform on the night. It didn't feel like he was part of the promotion, and he actually took a back seat, wouldn't do interviews and so on until I think about 8 days beforehand. So that's another thing, control the narrative and get in the guy's head, mind games. Number 3 possibility would be that Fury is so ego-driven, so insecure, so anxious that he has to do stunts like this, make statements like this, enforce his sort of will in a typical sort of bully boy mentality on an opponent in order to beef himself up, to get himself motivated, to feel he has psychologically some sort of advantage. Because I don't think Fury feels he has the advantage here. I don't think that Fury believes it's a foregone conclusion he's going to beat this guy. I think Fury understands boxing. He understands the history of boxing. And he knows damn well, if his multitude of rather pathetic fanboys don't, that Alexander Usyk is a cast iron threat. He understands this. So for him to, you know, he doesn't want to lose his undefeated record. He feels that as long as he has that undefeated record, his legacy is intact, to say nothing of his ability to say, well, I am the generation's best. He actually says he's the best heavyweight ever, which of course he isn't, but he can say, well, Joshua's lost, Usyk's a small middleweight, we don't need him. I am the best. Look, now who's defeated the Gypsy King? And if he loses, or if he runs the risk of losing that, all bets are off. He's back to square one. It's the old snakes and ladders routine. He's then got to actually go out and prove it, rather than simply move pieces on a chessboard and be sort of strategical outside the ring to the point where he can create a narrative which says, I am the best. Now, let's go through those things, because before we move on to Usyk, mind games against Usyk are never going to work. Usyk is too clever, too cool, and is too mentally strong psychologically, without question. He's proved it. He's won all his belts on the road, in other people's backyards. He's accepted less money than he perhaps could have negotiated to make fights. He is the epitome of the still waters run deep category. He knows his own strength. He knows what he's capable of. He knows his worth. I mean, his fistic worth, his financial worth. He's prepared to put to one side in order to achieve greatness. And he's pretty well paid also. He's made millions as well. Usyk's mentality is, if I get 5 million, it's not as much as 10 million, but I can live on 5 million, or 10 million, not as good as 15 million, but you know what, who cares, right? So, and he won't win mind games. He's far shrewder than Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, his so-called mind games, which may be considered mind games by people who aren't very bright, or who aren't very secure, who themselves can be easily bullied. It is a bully boy mentality from Fury. It doesn't work on Usyk. It's as simple as that. But let's say that Fury, let's just play devil's advocate and say that Fury is correct in the fact that he is the big cash cow. I'm the Gypsy King. I'm the one that took on Derek Chisora, a complete mismatch of a fight. I charged 27 quid on pay-per-view. People bought it. The figures were pretty good. I filled out Wembley Stadium against essentially a no-hoper. I am the governor. I am the top man. I am the Gypsy King. Okay. Well, the point is that, as with someone who has a very good business model, someone who starts up a company, they may have great ideas, but they can't do anything without the right employees. They need to hire the right people, and those people come at a cost. Sometimes it's a high cost. Why? Because they know the flip side, the yin and the yang, the flip side of this in business is that they have the skills that can take this person's idea and make it a reality and make that person very, very rich. And along the way, they make pretty good money themselves. Now, if you can't hire the right people, if you can't find the right people, then you could be in trouble. And so you have this constant to-ing and fro-ing between, you know, the so-called entrepreneurs and the, you know, shall we say the workforce, the white collar and the blue collar. You have this pendulum that swings. And the government that you have of the day will be might be conservative. It might strongly favour the entrepreneur, the so-called, you know, prosperity makers. They'll talk about trickle-down economics and so on and so forth. They'll support those. If you have a more left-wing government, then they will support the workers and they will be more pro-union. At least that's how it's been traditionally. Now we don't have the latter. We have essentially two cheeks of the same arse. In Britain, I'm talking about. Certainly in America. There hasn't been a decent left-wing in America for many, many decades. But so even if Fury is the main man, he needs a dance partner. He needs someone in the opposing corner who may not have the same economic worth as him, but nevertheless he needs them, because in order to activate that economic worth, to keep making those 50, 60 million, you know, whatever, he needs the right person in the opposing corner. And as good as the figures for the third Derek Chisora farce were, the Derek Chisoras of the world just won't do. You know, if he was to resurrect Kubrat Pulev or maybe have a fight with Joseph Parker, it's not good enough. To make that money that he clearly wants, because he says he's not about the money. He absolutely is about the money and has proven it with his actions again and again and again. He needs Usyk. So Usyk has that worth. He may not be by himself a big draw. He may not be able to sell out Wembley Stadium by fighting Derek Chisora. But you put him in with Tyson Fury and suddenly his economic worth grows. You know, it's a quantum leap, basically, because he is able to give Fury what Fury needs to activate his own personal economic worth. So, to me, 70-30 is an unfair split, basically. 60-40 with winner-take-all sounded right to me. However, Usyk turned around and said, all right, 70-30, I'll accept it. And in his broken English, greedy belly. I love that bit. This belly thing cracks me up. I love this belly thing. It's a greedy belly. I accept 70-30. However, you must give £1 million to the poorest Ukrainian people. That I guess he's talking refugees or people who've had their cities destroyed, their homes destroyed, they lost all their worldly possessions. You must give £1 million, and for every day you delay, 1%'s coming off your purse. A very, very shrewd move by Usyk, because essentially Fury, and against lesser people, your Wilders, your people who aren't quite as astute, either intellectually or economically, who certainly aren't as, whose IQs don't match that of Usyk, they can be fooled by, and they'll be triggered, if you like. That's the word that we use these days, triggered by something like an offer of 70-30. I'm not taking it, how dare you? Hey, you just don't want the fight. Not wanting the fight may be valid, but Usyk's played the game. He said, all right, I'll have 70-30, but here's my stipulation. So he's batted the ball back to Fury. It will be very interesting to see how Fury reacts to this. I don't normally care about all these negotiations. I'm definitely a sort of, you know, wake me up when we get there sort of person. But these are quite interesting, and I knew they would be, because Usyk is, I mean, he's already in the Hall of Fame, and you can argue that Fury's already in the Hall of Fame as well, but Usyk is so mentally strong, so in control of his emotions, which Fury isn't. Look, Fury is a brave guy. You don't go to Germany and beat Klitschko. You don't go to America virtually off the back of a 3 or 2.5 year layoff and fight Wilder and essentially beat him even though he got a draw. You know, Fury is an extremely talented heavyweight with a lot of guts when it comes to fighting men. What he is not is a man in control of his emotions and a man who can control anxiety. I'm talking about anxiety outside the ring. You know, he talks a lot about mental health issues. Well, that's a catch-all phrase. I actually think it's a generic term that doesn't actually mean much. It can mean anything. It means nothing and everything in a sense. But he talks a lot about mental health issues. If you've ever worked with people with mental health issues, and I have extensively, then you will know that controlling your emotions is the start of any kind of treatment. And Fury, although he's not away with the fairies entirely, I mean, I think most of what comes out of his mouth could imply that, but I don't think he himself believes a lot of what comes out of his mouth. Nevertheless, he does find it difficult to control his emotions. You saw that with the True Geordie interview. You saw it just before the third Wilder fight when during the weigh-in, he was effing and blinding and shouting and screaming, purely designed to promote himself, to beef himself up, to motivate himself for the fight, which he didn't look in great shape. Perhaps he wasn't that motivated for it. Perhaps he didn't feel he was quite ready, but it was going to happen. So he had to somehow screech and bellow his way to the point where he was in the right mindset. Usyk is the polar opposite. Usyk doesn't need any of that grandstanding. He doesn't need to play to the gallery, even if the gallery might be empty. He doesn't need to, you know, pout and preen. And he doesn't need everybody massaging his ego, telling him he's the greatest heavyweight of his era or of all time. No, Usyk just gets on with it. Why? Because Usyk is mentally extremely strong and in control of his emotions. In the ring, if he's motivated physically, mentally, Fury is, in my opinion, probably the best heavyweight of this era. But outside of the ring, I think his psyche is still quite brittle. So, just to recap, 70-30 says Fury, and it goes down 1% every day you don't accept. Usyk comes back and says, I accept 70-30, but you give £1 million to Ukraine's most vulnerable, the people who suffered the most during the war, and for every day you delay, 1% comes off your side of the purse. That seems fair, doesn't it? Mind games are plenty. Negotiations. This is quite a good little negotiating spat. This is. I'm quite enjoying this one. I don't normally enjoy them, but I don't normally pay attention to any of these negotiations. But this is a bit of fun. This one. So you know, what do you think of all this? Leave your comments below and subscribe to the channel if you know. If you could do that, and you could hit the like button, that'd be great too. But I'm eager to hear what you've got to say. No doubt there'll be further chapters in this great saga. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, let's just hope the fight happens sooner rather than later. I've made other videos about where I think Fury's mind is, what I think his tactics are. Go and have a look at them if you want. But I just want to see this fight, as we all do. And make no mistake about it, the person that is perceived to have provided the roadblock to this fight being made, history will judge them. History will judge them, just as history judges Riddick Bowe for not making the fight with Lewis, for throwing the WBC belt in the trash. whoever doesn't make this fight, they got it coming. Anyway, thanks for your time. Speak again soon and take care. Bye for now.